Entrepreneurship has not been the obvious path. I don't come from an entrepreneurial family. I don't come from a business family. And so this is the first time I've built something from scratch, and all the challenges and the amazing things that come with it have come my way since then.
You've been at the forefront in building Pakistan's startup ecosystem, and then later you co-founded the I2I Ventures.
We realized that all of those learnings helped us look at the startups from an investment perspective.
Many of these things that investors actually promises you for the amount, and then they really don't invest in.
So knowledge generally for founders has really improved and increased. But I feel like 12-15 years ago, that was not the case. We have 13 active companies in our portfolio right now.
Founding a venture capital fund is very different from founding a startup.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes and no. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in terms of my own experience as an entrepreneur, I will say it's a lot harder than I thought it would be. A lot harder.
Hi everyone, Assalamu alaikum. This is Mariam Jamal and welcome to another inspiring episode of Founder Interview Series by Women Entrepreneurs of Asia. Today we're joined by a trailblazer who has been shaping the startup ecosystem in Pakistan. She has spent years building opportunities for founders, backing bold ideas, and proving that women can lead not just companies but the entire ecosystems. Please welcome the co-founder and general partner of I2I Ventures, Misbah Naqvi. Assalamu alaikum, Misbah.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you, Mariam?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Braving the Karachi weather.
I'm sure it's so sunny outside. Very hot. But thank you so much for coming over and taking out time for us.
My pleasure. It's always good to talk to other female entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I'm grateful. It's a pleasure to have you here. Okay, so Misbah, before we dive into the I2I Ventures and your experience, I would like to know about your personal journey. Like, what experiences shaped you, towards taking the path of entrepreneurship?
Yeah. No, thanks. That's a good question to start with. I think for me, entrepreneurship has not been the obvious path. I don't come from an entrepreneurial family. I don't come from a business family. My father's in the Navy. My mother's a teacher. Started off as a teacher. Now she's a teacher trainer. So, didn't come from an entrepreneurial background. Went to school in Karachi, in Islamabad. Went to IBA. Started my career in Citibank. Because I wanted to be in the finance space. A few years in, I realized I didn't want to be a banker. So I moved within Citibank towards more of a communications role and a community sort of management role. And after that, I left and joined Acumen, which is a social venture fund. So they were opening their office in Pakistan. They work with social entrepreneurs, so healthcare, housing, water, energy. So a little bit of the nonprofit side, philanthropic side, but focused very much on looking at business models that are serving the poor and serving low-income people. So there I got an opportunity to understand more about Pakistan and see the mass market, go into Kachi Abadis and understand how are people making decisions, what access do they have to goods and services. That was very eye-opening for me. I moved to New York with the company and was there for a few years, worked for a foundation.
Wonderful.
And then joined a fintech startup as I moved back to Pakistan. So I've been back now just almost 14 years. And when I moved back, I was working with a fintech startup. So I was a very early team member in that and got to see firsthand how startups function, what some of the early challenges are with startups as well. And in the meantime, I was on the advisory board for Invest to Innovate, which my partner Kulsoom founded in 2011. And through that, I was seeing what was happening in the startup space in Pakistan. So fast forward into 2017, 2018, when Kulsoom had decided she wanted to set up a venture fund based on the learnings from Invest to Innovate, she asked me to join her. And so for me, it was more about looking back and thinking about what is it that I've done so far that makes me gives me the kind of skills that I would need to run a venture fund. And I decided to say yes to her, and then we built it together. So that was kind of the start of my entrepreneurial journey in terms of founding a company, which is in our case a fund, and then building it over the last 6-7 years. But it is not an obvious path for me, and it was not something that some people grow up in an environment where entrepreneurship is celebrated. And they want to be on, they feel like they have the business wala kira, they want to do that. I was not one of those, very much professional in the finance space. And so this is the first time I've built something from scratch. And all the challenges and the amazing things that come with it have come my way since then.
Wonderful. So you've been at the forefront in building Pakistan's startup ecosystem, and then later you co-founded the I2I Ventures. So what inspired you to take a leap in
Yeah.
founding?
No, that's a good question because for us, I think, like I said, Kulsoom was the founder of Investor Innovate,
Right.
which is a company that has been working with startups in Pakistan since 2011, 2012. And they realized the potential of Pakistani founders. They were already working with Pakistani founders, helping them with their business models as an accelerator, running boot camps, also running a whole research arm, which was talking about the Pakistani market, what was happening in the space, etc. And we realized that, all of those learnings helped us look at the startups from an investment perspective. And we realized that there was a real opportunity for good investors to come in this space because very often we'd seen good startup founders raise money from not great investors or shark investors or investors who wanted too much of the company or investors who promised things and didn't deliver. And we said, we can do better because we understand the space. We, with Kulsoom's an entrepreneurial background and her work with startups, with my finance background and my experience in the startup, we felt like we were in a good position to take advantage of this opportunity of actually investing in the companies because previously Invest to Innovate did not and still does not invest in the companies they work with. They just
Right.
are a support organization. So we decided to set up a fund to actually make those commercial investments because we saw the need, but also the financial and the commercial opportunity.
Right. And that's actually a fact. It's true that I've heard many of these things that investors actually, promises you for the amount and then they really don't
Yeah.
invest in it. So
Also at that time, now we're talking about obviously, 12, 13 years
Right.
ago,
Yeah.
there wasn't that much knowledge about what founders should expect, what founders should
Mm.
ask for. And I think the role that Invest to Innovate as an accelerator played, and then later on, and Invest to Innovate and Plan 9 came up at the same time, the government of Punjab's incubator. And then there were others also. Obviously, Jahanara was, working with the Nest.io and now with Catalyst Labs. There were also national incubation centers came about. So over the last few years, we've seen more of these support organizations. So founders have more access to knowledge. They understand more about like how do you tell apart, a good term sheet from a bad term sheet. There's more knowledge. And then I think people just started accessing technology a lot more to understand what's happening out there. So knowledge generally for founders has really improved and increased. But I feel like 12, 15 years ago, that was not the case. And there were also very few investors. And so there was an imbalance of power.
Yeah.
And so even good founders knew that sometimes the terms were not that good, but they had to go ahead with those deals anyway because they wanted the funding for their startups.
That's right. I think there's better awareness now
Definitely.
in this sense. Okay, so Misbah, many of us know about I2I Ventures, but I'd be happy and if you could just explain a little to our people about this.
Sure.
That-
So I2I Ventures is what we call an early stage venture fund, which means that we invest in really early stage founders that are building companies to serve Pakistan's huge market, but also regional markets and outside Pakistan as well. We come in at a very early stage. In our space, we call it a pre-seed or seed stage, which means that companies are beyond idea stage, but this is very early. Founders have just started building. There's a little bit of traction. There's, in some cases, just a proof of concept or a pilot, or very early days, within the first year or two of the company. And we invest in those companies as equity investors. But running a venture fund means that we, it's not our money. We've actually raised money. So
Right.
the business of venture is that you raise money from investors who we call limited partners, and then you invest it in founders. And over a certain period of time, 5 to 7 to 10 years, you make the profits and you get money back and you return that money to your investors. So managers of a fund like Kulsoom and I are effectively fund managers. And we are the sort of the financial fiduciary. We have the fiduciary responsibility. We raise money and we invest money. So that's the business side of I2I Ventures. And then as a fund, we have 13 active companies in our portfolio right now. We've invested in fintech because of fintech obviously covers payments, it covers lending, it covers committees, savings. We've also invested in logistics, we've invested in e-commerce, we've invested in education, edtech, and also what we call B2B SaaS, which is software as a service. Both companies serving Pakistan, serving the region, and serving some global markets. And as that, as we've grown that portfolio, we've seen, more of those opportunities come out in Pakistan and other areas around us. But effectively, we're known as a sector agnostic fund. So we don't specialize in certain sectors, but we specialize in the stage that we come in.
Wonderful. So, founding a venture capital fund is like very different from founding a startup.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes and no. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Okay, so like how did your entrepreneurial mindset shape this I2I ventures? And then like did you feel like or see any gaps in Pakistan and Asia that you
Yeah.
thought, these things needs to be filled?
Yeah, I think starting with the opportunity, which is what I mentioned, we thought that there was an opportunity to invest in good Pakistani founders. We thought having worked with founders and being in Pakistan and understanding the market really well, we're in a good position to pick out those early stage founders. And then of course invest in a way that allows us to make money at the end of the day for our investors, for the fund. Because we see the opportunity that Pakistan provides. And I think Pakistani startups and Pakistani founders are among the smartest in the world. And, we often talk about like the Pakistan tax, which Pakistani founders have to pay, which is beyond the actual tax, is really means that, it's a very hard market to build in.
Yeah.
It's a very high friction market. You're an entrepreneur. You can, you realize that yourself. And so what we want to do is build that support system for these amazing founders. So find the founders and then support them in their journey. So we are along with them for the ride at the early stages. And I think in terms of opportunities, I mentioned some of the sectors we're in, like that really mirrors where we see a lot of building happening in Pakistan. I think in terms of our own experience, my own experience as an entrepreneur, I will say it's a lot harder than I thought it would be. A lot harder. I think,
Sure.
very often investors are glamorized because they're the ones who write the checks. And at the end of the day, we also have had to raise money for our fund. So if we don't empathize with founders that are also struggling to raise money, then shame on us, because we've been through that. We've been in exactly that same position. And then it's not easy going out and globally raising money and trying to convince people that Pakistan has an opportunity, that we will be good, investors, etc. So I think for us there was a lot of like it was a very slow journey, took some time. I think global changes, Pakistani political challenges kind of, came into that. Again, similar to other founders that are building companies and startups as well. I think what we realized is that, we have to stay true to our values, and we have to continue to try and share our vision in a way that inspires others also. And again, the same thing that we expect of founders that are pitching to us, we've had to do the same thing with investors that we've raised from. So I think for us, it's telling the Pakistan story in a way that's exciting for people. And then for us also, building the fund in a way that reflects our values, building the team in a way that reflects our values, but also continuing to make those investments in a smart way. If we all had a crystal ball, we'd all be rich. We'd all be making good investments, right? So you just don't know how the outcome's going to happen, but you can make informed decisions. And that's what we've tried to do as we've built the fund. And then, of course, attract a team. We've been very lucky to have like amazing team members that are part of our vision, that buy into the vision, but then also bring a lot to the table given their backgrounds, etc.
True. Now we're seeing this part of the investor in a way, I2I ventures. But again, if I talk about the challenges that you must have faced, so what were the toughest challenges that you faced in building something that was like it's so pioneering, and then we know it's not easy for an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I think it's not easy for an entrepreneur. And then if you're a female entrepreneur, it sometimes is a little bit even harder. And I think for us, I would say the biggest challenge, which is the first challenge, was fundraising, like I had mentioned already. I think convincing people to take a bet on us with their wallets, right? Convincing people to write checks, that's the biggest, that's the starting point, but also one of the biggest challenges we've had. Convincing people that Pakistan is an opportunity which we believe in, sharing our vision is something that has been very important for us. There have been some challenges along the way. I know being women, sometimes we get discounted. People think we're soft or that we're running an impact fund. So needing to get beyond that hurdle is also something we've seen. I think fundraising aside, one thing we realized was that as we started building our track record, we were able to showcase the kinds of investments we were making. And so fundraising became easier. And so it's the same way for a startup. you have traction,
Mm.
it becomes easier to raise money after you have traction, after you have customers. For us also, that journey on fundraising became easier as we had great companies already in our portfolio. I think the other thing is attracting a great team. You can attract really amazing people, but you also want a mix of someone that has the right background, the right mindset. That has not been too hard for us. I'm very happy to say. But generally in Pakistan, it is a challenge. In terms of talent and getting the right people to join your team and buy into the vision. And I think one thing that we are now in the space, not just us but our peers as well, thinking about is how do you eventually make money as a fund? Because abhi we've only done the first part. Well, we've done the first two parts, which is raising the money and investing the money. Now we have to make the money. We have to recuperate the money.
Toughest.
That's really tough. But that's a challenge that hasn't come as yet. So
Oh.
us and other fund managers, other investors, we're all thinking about, okay, what's going to happen? Which are the companies that are going to grow? How are we going to have exits? Because exit is a term we use in our space where we actually are able to return money to our investors. It's only after we've done that we can say that we've had any level of success, because building a great portfolio is only the first part.
That's right. That's right. And I've also heard that, this exit strategy is built in the very initial stages
Yes.
too.
Yes.
It's
So we
there.
when we talk to founders at the early stage, we definitely ask them what their vision is in terms of where they see the company going.
Right.
Because then it allows us to decide how our exit is going to happen. So I think it's important to separate the two. A founder may have one vision for where the company exits or the founder exits, which means they could have an IPO, they could go for a listing, they could get bought out completely. But the investors also get benefits from that, but they may also look for exits before that, which we in our space, we could do secondaries, which means that a later in stage investors coming in and we get to sell a bit of our ownership to that investor. So for a fund, even though the founder's not exiting the company, the fund, an early stage investor, an early stage fund may be able to exit the company by selling out some of their shares. So there is a definitely a strategy around how you manage exits, both at a company level as well as at the fund level.
Right. So what does it take to earn the trust of the, limited partner and then also the founder who you're backing?
Yeah,
So because, I'm sure it's very tough to building trust in both.
absolutely,
That
absolutely,
entrepreneur and the founder, because you know
absolutely,
that it was a very skeptical market.
100%. And we have to do both sides, like you said, right? We have to first say. So I think what I realized as we were building was, like, initially it's people who you have credibility with, who trust you. You may be building on personal relationships, warm introductions, or people that have links to Pakistan already, that may be high net worth outside the country or in the country, that want to invest. So there needs to be some warm introductions, some predisposition to wanting to invest in a risky market or an emerging market. I think outside of that, we've always want to lead with our values, which is show who we are, be true to ourselves, be authentic. Because what I don't want is to say one thing to an investor, but actually be expected to do something different. So I think if you lead with authenticity, you're already starting to build that trust. And if you're open and transparent, which means, for example, talking about the challenges that Pakistan has, not saying, no, there's nothing, it's only going to be roses and, daffodils and butterflies. Actually highlighting that, these are the challenges that we see coming down the line. And here's how we are mitigating those risks. Here's why we still think there's an opportunity to invest. And so if you're open and honest and transparent, I think investors appreciate that. So we've always taken that sort of approach when we've been investing. And then at the same time, I think it's harder. I'll be honest, it was harder to earn founders' trust when we did not have a lot of founders already invested in and did not have those investments already under our portfolio. Because we again led with our values, wanted to find founders that were value aligned. But also, when we started investing in 2019 and 2020, it was a very competitive market. A lot of investment money was coming to Pakistan. So we had to really be authentic about our story, about what we wanted to do. And a lot of companies, a lot of investment funds say, oh, we're founder friendly. So we actually had to walk the talk. We actually had to say, here's how we're going to try and help you as founders. And then as we started building our early portfolio, we were able to actually do the work and demonstrate that. So fast forward a few more years, it actually, that trust was already gained and earned with our existing founders. And so became relatively a little bit easier to then attract other founders because we already had a track record with founders that we'd worked with.
Right, of course.
And it's something both Kulsoom and I are very proud of, is that I think at this point, our founders are our best ambassadors. So when our founders go to some other founders and say, oh, you should raise money from I2I Ventures because they're XYZ.
Yeah.
There's nothing like, it's like one of your customers
Right.
spreading the word on your
Word of
behalf.
mouth.
Absolutely.
Word of mouth. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then that trust comes, builds from there.
Right. So as you see many founders and then investors during the pitch sessions together, of course. So in your experience, do you think women pitch differently than men? And does that impact on their, on, I would say, receiving the money
Yeah.
from
So,
investors?
there's research that actually shows that when investors are looking at women pitching to them, both
Yeah.
men and women, by the way, investors, there was a Harvard study that was done a few years ago, which says that during pitch sessions, women get asked defensive questions by their potential investors or who they're pitching to. For example, how will you continue to build your team if you grow too big? Or, how will you have the money to grow to Lahore, for example. Whereas men get asked aspirational questions. So things that are allowing them to answer the question positively. So there's already an inherent bias. And I think it's not so much in how men and women pitch, it's more the bias at the investor level. So, with organizations like Catalyst Labs or Invest to Innovate, our sister company, and the NICs, like I know that they've done a lot of programs focused on women entrepreneurs specifically to allow them to deal with this investor bias. And so women have become stronger, and because they have the knowledge that they may already come up against this bias, and so they can train themselves in answering those questions in a way that takes the conversation towards the positive side rather than have to be defensive about it. And so I think I would say that I think men and women can be equally passionate when they pitch. I don't think I think it's a complete myth that women are not great at numbers or they're better at the soft side. Yeah, they're great at the soft side, but they're great at everything. So I don't think that because they're great on the soft side means that they're not great on the hard numbers or the business model. But I think what I have seen is that it's not so much pitching; it's sometimes the kind of businesses that women are sort of building that very often may not be seen as pure venture style businesses. And that's generally a problem just because there are fewer women in the space than men. And so I think at least at I2I Ventures, one thing that we are very conscious of is that we work extra hard to bring women into our pipeline. Because if we don't do the work at that stage, then they'll get lost in the numbers.
True.
But I think once we have the women in our pipeline, we evaluate them exactly the same way as we evaluate men. And I'm very proud that like 30% of the founders that we've invested in have been women. 30% of the companies have been female founded or co-founded, which is not great because it should be much higher, but actually is the highest than any other fund in Pakistan. So I think that's just a testament to the fact that if you do the work to bring women in the pipeline, a lot of them will actually be very deserving of your investment.
Right. What are some mistakes that you've seen the first time founders making and you'd wish that more of the women entrepreneurs would avoid?
Yeah, I think this is for me is not so gendered, but I will answer that both for men and women. And of course, if it's learning for women, that's really great. I think a couple of things that people, and I feel like people should keep in mind, is one, like I was talking about authenticity earlier. I think be true to yourself. I understand people may be nervous. It's okay to have sort of practiced your pitch. And if you lose your train of thought, it's okay. We're all human. It's fine if you're like, oh wait, I need a minute to gather my thoughts. I think people sometimes get a little nervous. That's all human. That's perfectly fine. What I think is not fine is not knowing your business well enough. So if you're coming in front of an investor, you should know exactly what you're pitching. You should know your numbers.
Right.
For things that are in the market where you don't know, don't lie. Just say, I don't know, I'm not prepared or whatever. But again, you should be prepared with most of that information. So do your homework. So I think one thing I would say is be authentic. Second is do your homework. Make sure you know your numbers. It's fine if you're not the expert in every aspect of your business, but then bring along people with you who are, because no one's building anything by themselves. There's always a team behind what you're building. So bring someone from the team if an area of expertise is not yours, but somebody who you're working with or building with. That's why sometimes founders, co-founders who are more than one actually help, because they have different expertise and they can complement each other. I think one other thing that I've seen, which sometimes for me is, I would say red flag or maybe just off-putting, is when someone comes and says we have no competition, because everybody has some competition or the other.
Right.
You may not have a competition in your business model because you are bringing in tech in a space that's been analog. You may not have competition in something that is a very fresh perspective on something, but you always have competition for people's money, for people's attention, and for people's time. And so to say I have no competition makes me feel like you're taking an easy way out and saying, oh, no, no, like I mean, sure, like if it's great to be passionate about what you're building, and you may really believe that nobody else is building the way you do. But if you're going and selling something to someone, because obviously these are not charities, these are businesses, you want someone to put their money in towards buying your good or service. That money has an opportunity cost. So you're always competing with something or the other. And even if you're digitizing something, you're still competing with a manual form that has been, people have been used to for like decades and centuries. So I think there's always competition. And when a founder comes and says we have no competition, then it's always like, really, like it's a bit of a red flag for me. And I think beyond that, sometimes just not listening is something that we look out for. I think founders that are open to feedback, that can have a conversation with you. Like I said, it's great to be passionate about what you're building, but what I want you to be passionate about is the problem, not the solution. So I want you to come to a conversation being open. And I think that for me is going to be an indication for what our relationship is going to be like after I invest. And I often say this to founders, it's like we're entering into a long-term relationship. It's like a marriage, right? You have to be able to see what yourselves building together for like a decade. And if you're not on the same page, if you're not open to feedback, then that could be a challenge and a problem.
Right, that's right. Well, what do you think, Misbah? How can investors and founders work more effectively to, build sustainable businesses and not just the fundable ones?
Yeah,
What do
that's
you
such a great question. I think in Pakistan, there's been so much focus on venture and VC and raising rounds that I feel like it's taken away a little bit from a broader entrepreneurial journey. Now, my space is venture, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
But if I take a step back and look at Pakistan, the Pakistan opportunity is so much more than venture, so much more than venture type businesses, so much more than businesses that are going to be great for funding or for venture type funding. And I think we need many more initiatives in our space, both founders jumping in to build in those areas, but also investors looking to invest in those areas, which is more traditional businesses, more SME style businesses. Every business does not have to be a tech business, but every business can leverage technology in a smart way. So I think we can help others see, okay, venture is not the only kind of funding that's available. And at the same time, building a venture style startup is not the only kind of business you could build. You can be entrepreneurial in many different ways, right? I mean, you were telling me you're a fashion entrepreneur, right? So you could be using technology in your business in a way that you're actually managing a supply chain better or managing deliveries better. But the work itself does not have to be technology related. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in Pakistan. And, for not only those of us that are investing to think about other models of investing and other types of companies, but also people that are building companies. And I feel like here there's like an information disconnect. I think we talk a lot about startups and founders that are building in the startup space. There's a lot of entrepreneurial activity in Pakistan. Pakistanis are very entrepreneurial. So, you go down the street and you'll see 5 different examples of someone that's doing something that's entrepreneurial. I think we need to celebrate that more. I think we need to give more space to people that are building in that. And we need more enabling ecosystems for people that are building in those spaces, whether it's funding, it's access to debt coming from banks, or maybe it's grants coming from the government to help people get started. There's a lot that we can do on the entrepreneurial spectrum altogether in Pakistan.
Women entrepreneurs face, more challenges and barriers. There are many barriers for them in accessing the capital. So, what do you think? What is the gap that still needs to be filled? Because you're a fund co-founder, so you can, tell us briefly on this.
Yeah, I think we've seen this with our sister company, Invest to Innovate, which is run by Sarah Munir and the team, and they're amazing. But one of the things that they've been doing is that they've had a program. It's concluded now, but for a few years they had a program where they were focusing specifically on helping women founders get investment ready. Because what we found was that they were investment worthy.
Yeah.
They were building good businesses, but they were not investment ready. There's a practice that you can bring in. There's like access to information that can help you. And so I think programs like that, Catalyst Labs, I know, with Jahan, under Jahan's guidance, is running a program where they work with women founders specifically. So I think we need more of that exposure so that women can get to practice and can, understand. And then, like I was saying earlier, there are some inherent biases that women face. And so getting into programs like this or learning about how to overcome those biases can be helpful. I think beyond that, it is something that we do consciously, like I was saying earlier, to bring women into our pipeline. Having a sister company that works with entrepreneurs really helps. But also going out and actively like doing office hours or being open to women that reach out and say, can I talk to you? Can I get some advice on or podcasts like this, like for example, where you're showcasing women founders. I think there's a lot of learning that you can do from each other, but also those of us that are in places which are visible or are already building. There's a lot we can do to mentor others and help. So I think there is what I would say to women founders is like look for programs that are designed to help you, even those that are not focused on women specifically, like some of the national incubation centers. There's also a lot that's available online now. And I think there's so much learning that can happen from how do you think about a business model? How do you create a pitch deck? How should you talk to investors? Where are the market opportunities? How do you size a market? Like just a lot of that stuff that's out there that I think, women and men can also access, and they should. I think the challenge remains that there are some cultural barriers in Pakistan. I think it's not fair for me to be like, oh, if you want to do it, you can. Because the reality is that women have extra responsibilities in the home. They have family responsibilities. There's a cultural bias. There are women, you said you were talking to Maha earlier. There are women that have challenges with transport. And that's something that she's addressing, where getting to work and getting back from work is a problem that's taken away, and that becomes a lot easier. So I think there's a lot that we can do as a society to help women just access those things. I don't think women need hand-holding at every stage. I think it's about creating opportunities where we're helping remove some of those barriers. You talk about, Dr. Sarah and Dr. Iffa, like they created a platform recognizing that there's such amazing women doctors that don't get to practice because of reasons that they can't control. And so let's just take the business to them.
Right.
Let's not expect to change. Everybody now should leave their kids at home, because everyone doesn't have the ability to do that. Some people's family setups don't allow for it. So I think those are things that, we can all do. I know of companies both at a large and a small level, startup level, that have nurseries in their offices, so that men and women can bring their kids to daycare or to nurseries or having a creche. So I think there are things that we can do to support women, but we also need to realize that it is a privilege, and it is something that you need to overcome a number of barriers to be able to access. So as much work as we can do to remove those barriers, I think we can help enable women more.
That's right. What opportunities excite you the most for the women-led ventures?
It's also an adventure for sure.
Women-led ventures in Pakistan and Asia.
I think there are areas that I'm excited about that actually are not gendered. So, for give you an example, Halima Iqbal is building Uran, has been for a few years, doing really well. They've been having a committee model where women are borrowing and saving through committees digitally. They've also recently
Great model.
It's a great model, and it's so prevalent in Pakistan, right? So why not improve it by bringing in the digital aspect? But they've also recently started gold savings, and they've had like such interest in the product, and the idea there is that Halima's a great entrepreneur, regardless of whether she's a man or a woman.
Right.
She happens to be a woman building in a space. She does look at the opportunity to build for women. And I think that's an area where very often being a woman actually helps. You know what are the you've and she's obviously, being a woman, has a certain perspective, but she's also done the homework to understand what are the barriers women face. She often tells her own story about like how when she moved back to Pakistan, she couldn't set up a bank account without her father or brother or somebody else co-signing or helping with the paperwork, which made her realize how underbanked women are. And so sometimes it's your personal experiences that put you in the situation to be able to understand how, as a woman, can you build products and services for women. But I think even beyond that, there's a lot that's happening in the fintech space in Pakistan, just because it's so untapped, and there's a huge opportunity to build products and services for women, especially, but also men. In Pakistan. So I think that's a space that really excites me. I think AI and technology, you can't move away from it. You have to embrace it and leverage it, because if you don't, your competitor will. If you don't leverage it in your business, your competitor is going to do it. And so I think I see both men and women, doing really interesting things in terms of bringing AI into their businesses. You don't have to be an AI first company, but you can definitely be an AI driven company. And so I think that's something that definitely is interesting and exciting in terms of what's happening, what's going to be coming up around the corner.
So, what's your long-term vision for the I2I Ventures?
Look, we are, we're pretty much towards almost being fully deployed from our first fund. Kulsum and I have, been talking about like now getting into market and potentially raising the next fund. I think for us, Pakistan continues to be a really central focus for us. We're excited about the opportunities to build in Pakistan for the region and for the world outside. But we're also excited about the opportunities for outside companies to come into Pakistan because of the market opportunity that Pakistan represents. And I think those are some themes that are going to continue to be exciting for us in the next few years. And venture is a long-term game. Like I was saying earlier, we've only done we've only done 2/3 of it yet because we've raised the money and invested the money. Now we have to make the money. So that's still continuing. That's something we're focused on. But also beyond that, what comes next is also a conversation we're having right now.
Right. So, as someone who has built and backed businesses, seen successes and struggles of the women founders, what's that one piece of advice you would give to our women who are planning to, start their entrepreneurial journeys?
Yeah. I think I would say like do your homework, which means like understand the space you're building in, look at the opportunity, do your homework around who you're going to be talking to in terms of investors. And don't be shy of taking the first step. Take the first step and build incrementally. So I think like understand the market you're building for, take the first couple of steps and then listen to the market, because the market will tell you if you have a product or service that people are interested in, they will part with their money to access that. And that speaks much louder than any investor putting money into you or someone saying, "Acha beta, shabash, bahut acha kaam kiya." If your customers are paying for something, it could just be a test, it could be a pilot, it could be small steps. It'll tell you a lot. So I would say start small, build incrementally, and just be open and listen to what the market is telling you.
Right. Okay, so Misbah, we have this fun quick fire round that we
Okay.
do with our guests. So I want you to answer these few questions. All right. So startup in one word.
Challenging.
Right. One myth about women entrepreneurs you want to bust.
That they're soft.
Okay, nice. Karachi biryani or late night chai to celebrate of win.
Biryani any day. You don't even need to finish that sentence.
Okay.
I'm a complete biryani fiend. Yes,
Wow.
Karachi biryani.
Good to know. Okay, so a podcast every founder should listen to.
The Comparable by my partner Kulsum Lakhani. She talks about business models in emerging markets that are similar and contrasting, but also looking at the through lines between different markets, and it's really eye opening. She's interviewed a few Pakistani founders, but it's really a global podcast, so definitely listen to that.
Okay. Harder to pitch investors or limited partners?
I would say limited partners, because you are asking them to invest in you so that you can invest in others. Whereas when you're pitching to investors, you're just asking them to invest in you.
True. Okay, so if I2I Ventures had a tagline, like in one line only, what would it be?
We have a tagline. We invest in bold founders
Hmm.
with big visions, building for and outside Pakistan.
Right. Is that one line?
Yes. Okay. It's one sentence.
Then it's okay. Okay. So, which Asian city has the best energy for women entrepreneurs?
Oh, that's a tough one because I haven't been to many Asian cities, but since this is a quick fire round, Karachi.
Okay,
I know it
good,
really well.
good answer. All right. So, if you weren't building I2I Ventures, what completely different career would you choose?
Probably something in the hospitality space. Maybe I would manage a coffee shop or a cafe.
Wow, amazing. Coffee person?
Definitely.
Nice. Okay. So, the emoji you overuse when texting your team.
When I text my team, probably the nerd
one.
the nerd emoji with the glasses.
Nice. Okay. So, if you could change one thing about the capital flows in emerging markets, what would it be?
I think I would have more people
Mm.
understand the potential that Pakistan has. They'll make a lot of money in the medium to long term.
Great. All right. So, to end this, I want you to share one book, one habit, and one belief that every entrepreneur should build.
I'll do it in reverse. One habit I think is consistency. Just stay at it because sometimes it's very hard. It's easy. It feels like it would be easier to walk away, but just resilience and consistency. One belief.
Yeah.
Oh, I think belief in yourself. Belief in yourself is the and having that confidence is very, very important. So that would be belief in yourself. I think with a book, I'm not very great with with books that are business related. Although I do read a lot, but I read all kinds of other stuff. I think there's a book that is called "Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution," and I kind of used that earlier when you were talking as well. It's a really great book by the founder of Ways. Talks about how it's a framework to think about how, again, to not get obsessed with the solution that you've already decided on, but get obsessed with the problem so that you can then solve for it. So that's a great book to read.
Thank you so much, Misbah, for coming over and sharing your journey, your challenges, your vision with us today. I'm grateful for that. And your journey tells us that entrepreneurship isn't just about building the businesses, but also about building systems that create opportunities for others. So, thank you very much for watching us. Keep shining, keep building, and keep leading with heart. This is Mariam signing off from Women Entrepreneurs of Asia. Allah Hafiz.